So hey guys, this is your favorite the fictional Vortex. So in this video, we will see, what if Naruto awakens the blood of Vampire and Badger King? But before we start, remember to subscribe and like this video. Now let's start. What the hell are you doing here, loser? Kiba yelled. 16-year-old Naruto Uzumaki sighed. Oji-san, you so owe me. He thought, half an hour more and I'll be able to burn these fucking clothes and be with my teammates. Ignoring Kiba, Naruto climbed the stairs and took a seat in the back of the room. He didn't spare any of them a glance. Did they really think I took this shit 3 times? For a village that boats looking underneath, they fucking suck. The blonde thought, keeping the glamour up. Iruka came in and looked around. His eyes landed on Naruto and he nodded, getting a nod back. The bell sounded and Iruka waited while Sakura and Ino fought over who got to sit next to Sasuke. For fuck's sake, there's an empty seat on the other side. Naruto muttered. It must have carried, as Kiba snorted. Shikamaru, while his head down, was heard chuckling and Choji stopped eating to look across the aisle at him. A low buzz came from Shino and Hinata made an eep sound. The said girls turned and glared at him, and the various other students who Naruto didn't give a damn about turned to look at him. He heard Iruka mutter, "Shit. There goes the sound barrier." The resulting shout from the 2 females was halted as the door to the classroom opened and 2 figures wearing solid white masks and cloaks. The taller one had a steel-capped bow staff across the back. Yes, Iruka said, a sigh of relief that Mount Fangirl had been derailed before it could erupt. The taller figure handed Iruka a folded note. He read it and nodded. "If you'll both wait here, I'll announce the teams, you can collect him after." The shorter of the 2 nodded and the 2 took up a position on either side of the door. It's been a long road getting from the young innocent minds to the 16-year-old graduates I see before me. Iruka said softly, "Some of you have lived up to the expectations set before you, others suck more than Sakura's mom." Laughter filled the classroom, and said pink-haired girl rounded and was going to yell at a certain blonde. "Shut up," Naruto said, his voice holding none of the RMTH they'd come to hear him use over the years with Sakura. "My assignment is over. I no longer need to pretend to be the worst student here, nor infatuated with the likes of you." He looked at Iruka. "My team is here, may we leave? I find myself sickened with the so-called graduates." Iruka smiled. "You know the rules, Naruto," he said. "Damn," the blonde thought as he waited. Iruka announced teams 1 through 6. Team 7, Iruka said, and even the gathered graduates could tell he was bored with this. Saiken, Sakura Haruno and Sasuke Uchiha. Sakura's shout and squeal hit several levels that had dogs howling. Poor Akamaru felt like someone had a dog whistle in his ear. "Take that, pig." "Yes, great, whatever." Iruka muttered. "Your sensei is Kakashi Hatake. You might as well get comfortable, he's never on time." Team 7 looked at him like he was insane. Team 8 will be Hinata Hyuga, Shino Aburame and Kiba Inuzuka. Your sensei will be Kurenai Yuhi. He smiled as the 3 clan heirs kept their responses to themselves. He did notice the look Hinata shot Naruto and pitied the girl. She'll never get him. If she even gets close, she'll have her throat ripped out. He thought with a look at the shorter of the 2 masked figures by the door. Mentally shaking his mind, Iruka continued. Team 9 is officially still in circulation, and that leaves Team 10. Ino looked around and even through her Sasuke-kun, addled mind realized there were only so many students. Ino Yamanaka, Shikamaru Nara and Choji Akamaiki. Your sensei will be Asuma Sarutobi. Iruka rolled up the scroll he'd read from N.D. started to gather the papers on his desk. "I wish you all the best of luck, and if we work together." "Hey, what about the Dobi?" Sasuke asked. This prompted the fangirls to sigh, and some of them talk about how caring Sasuke-kun was asking about the dead last. Iruka looked annoyed. "Kiba is on a team," he said. This got a laugh from many of the other students. "Not him, the blonde idiot." "Sass," Uke said, slightly annoyed at not getting the information he wanted. "Ino's on a team as well," Iruka said with a smirk. Everyone ignored Ino's whine about the insult. "I mean, Naruto," Sasuke said, name being dragged from him under protest. "Naruto graduated 3 years ago," Iruka said, and everyone looked at him in shock. Naruto sighed and stood. Can I go now, sensei? I really want to get int. Oh, some proper clothes and burn these tragedies. Iruka gave a wolfish grin. I don't know. Perhaps we should ask your teammates. Iruka turned. What say you, Team Mystique? The shorter cloaked figure moved. The body under the cloak was easily recognizable as female with the killer body and curves. A slender white-gloved hand reached up and pulled the mask off and the hood fell away revealing black hair. The blood-red eyes seemed to glow and the fangs peeked out from the full red lips. The young woman's face was as pale as snow. I'm finding it hard to look at those things, she said. Her voice held a coldness and a melody to it. She looked at the figure next to her. I say we have a bonfire. The bigger figure pulled off the mask revealing a young man. His eyes were wrapped with the Hittite. Short black hair had a streak of white. I'm blind and those things are hideous. Thanks, Rocks. Feel the love, Naruto said to the 6'8" blind ninja. And you too as well, Elisa. We're a team and family, Naru-kun. Elisa said. She was standing next to the blind giant one moment, then she was gone and next to Naruto running a gloved finger over his whisker marks. Drop the glamour and let's get you out of these clothes. Naruto smiled as he felt her lean into him. Her insinuation getting the males of the class to groan and blow back from nosebleeds. The pale girl didn't even turn around when she answered. Keep it behind closed doors and put a silencing jutsu on the room because I'm a screamer. Iruka laughed as the boys in the room were knocked out from blood loss. The man mountain called Rocks chuckled. Keep it up, you leech, and you'll be on notice for killing the next generation of genin. Elisa shrugged as she continued to rub Naruto's whisker marks. No loss. Can we go, sensei? All this blood is making me peckish. Naruto saw her fangs getting longer and groaned knowing what that meant for him. Well, Iruka seemed to think it over. Go ahead. Just meet me at the compound in an hour. Naruto looked at the girl before him. Better make it 2, sensei. He said. I think Elisa Heim is going to need some special time. Iruka laughed. Go ahead, you two. Naruto and the girl vanished in a blast of fire. Rocks. Yes, sensei. The blind man said. You going to join me for lunch? Wait. Iruka sighed and looked annoyed as he looked at Sasuke. What? Who the hell was that? What do you mean the Dobi graduated 3 years ago? Rocks laughed. This is the rookie of the year. What a travesty. The blind man said. Iruka nodded. I'll act as a Chunin instructor 1. More time and answer your questions, Sasuke Uchiha, since you asked so nice. He said mockingly. Naruto is a prodigy. He and his teammates graduated 3 years ago and were quickly merged as a formie. Dabble 3-man squad designed for assassination, recon and assault. I as their sensei led them on several missions. When your brother Itachi removed your clan from their attempt to take power by turning against the Hokage. You lie. Sasuke roared and lunged. Iruka sighed and grabbed the boy's wrist and twisted. Sasuke went to his knees. The fangirls screamed as they watched him be put down with a simple wrist lock. Stupid genin. I'm an elite Junin assassin. Iruka said. Sasuke tried to speak. But you've been a Chunin. I've been undercover this whole time. Weren't you, Liste? You have. Brainlock on trying to kill your brother. The class watched in rapt silence as Iruka looked at the boy on his knees. Now, as I was saying, once Itachi killed the rest of the Uchiha and was marked a nuke nin, it was decided that you would need watching throughout the academy. Naruto was selected and, under a glamour, has attended the academy pretending to be the worst student while watching all of you. Iruka sounded disgusted. He released the wrist lock and stepped back. Sasuke cradled his arm to him and looked up, before he bit out. And the girl, Elisa, Iruka chuckled, while Rocks outright laughed. Trust me, runt. Stay away from her. Sasuke snorted. Why? The loser Naruto try and fight me. Rocks laughed again. No. Elisa would kill you herself. There's only one man for her and it's Naruto. We'll see about that. Sasuke muttered. Your funeral. Rocks said with a shrug. Ready, sensei. Iruka nodded and removed the Chunin vest and tossed it onto the chair. Let's go. Wait. Iruka. Iruka paused and looked over his shoulder to Ino. Oh, and the name's not Iroku Ayumino. The class was shocked as the features of Iruka melted away, leaving a woman with red hair and green eyes and wearing a black form-fitting bodysuit that showed a well-endowed figure. My name is Mirage, She turned to leave with the man Mountain, who despite being blindfolded seemed to know exactly where he was walking. Mirage turned once more. Oh, and class, remember to be back by 1 to meet you Junin instructors. Ta-ta, Mirage said and closed the door behind her. The graduating genin class were in shock. Naruto groaned as he lay in a tangled heap of limbs and blankets. The pale figure stretched out next to him, resting a cool hand and face. The minute they arrived back into the apartment that Naruto had been using as a front, Elisa had shredded the orange clothes off of him with her inhumane strength, and before he could protest, she'd shoved him to the floor and kissing him and riding him hard. As her orgasm and his hit, she'd sank her fangs into his neck and drank his blood greedily. Elisa-chan, he mumbled, and she pulled her head back, her eyes glowing in the darkness. Missed you, she said, her fangs glinting in the low light leaking in. I can tell, he said as she rested against him. Let's take this to the bed, the floor's cold and hard, he said. Elisa looked bashful. Sorry, she said. Naruto laughed. Well, that's one way to get rid of those clothes. They spent the last 2 hours reconnecting on an intimate and physical level. I pray we never are separated for such a time again. He heard and looked to see the red eyes of his lover looking at him. We go where the Hokage needs us, love, Naruto said, his hand running through her hair. I want to be selfish. I miss being selfish. Elisa pouted. Naruto laughed, then pulled her into a kiss. I was alone for 500 years, and then you entered my life, she said. I was a little child, you saved me, Naruto said. Villagers had taken me to the woods and hoped that the legends of the blood-drinking monster would kill the Kyuubi brat. Elisa chuckled. I woke feeling someone in my woods and left my coffin for the first time since my mother's death. And what do I find? A small, loud 5-year-old whose eyes held the same pain and loneliness that my own did. I thought you were going to kill me, he said with a chuckle. Please, I never feed off of children, and you weren't big enough for a mouthful, Elisa countered. You cared for me, brought me back, and once you saw how everyone treated me, you told the old man off, Naruto said with a chuckle. His eyes landed on the clock and he groaned. We need to go. Reminiscing while fun. We're going to be late meeting Sensei and Rocks. The vampire against his chest sighed. Don't want to have you to myself. Rocks has been poor company over the last few years of border patrols. Naruto smiled, and feeding off him. He tastes of earth and stone and badger. She mock whined. Naruto knew that she was joking. The vampire and the earth elemental were the best friends and family to him, and while they argued and insulted one another, he knew that they cared about one another. They act like siblings sometimes, Naruto thought, pulling on a pair of black pants and a mesh shirt. Elisa-chan, do you have my jacket? He asked, turning to see her re-braiding her hair. The hidden blades in it once more. Rocks has it in a scroll, she told him. Tell me he didn't let those little beasts use it as a bed, Naruto begged. He didn't, the vampire assured him. She smiled. We've come a long way, from me being your protector and teacher, to you being mine and my lover, she thought as she saw him grab his weapon's belt, the bladed tonfa catching the light. She saw W as he pulled a large exploding tag and slapped it to the wall by the door. Ready, she nodded and took his hand. As she turned them to mist, he sent a pulse of chakra into the tag. Konoha was rock D by the explosion as the condemned apartment complex that the Kyuubi brat lived in went up in a fiery explosion. The mist reformed to laughing and clapping. Had to go out with a bang, Rocks said in greeting. You do know that the Hokage is going to lecture you about that, Mirage said, hand resting on her hip. The building was condemned. It was going to be demolished anyway. The civilians were going to do it while I was in there, Naruto said, and before he could move, Rocks had him in a huge bear hug and was squeezing the life from him. Rocks, he tried to yell. Air. The blind man put him down, a huge grin on his face. Hey bro, you and Overbite get it on, Rocks, Elisa scolded. What do you think? Naruto said, turning his head, showing the rapidly healing bite marks. Damn, surprised you're able to stand, much less shag her moody ass rotten. The blind man ran a finger over the area and shook his head. Mirage sighed. It's been 3 years, must you do this? She asked. Yes, came 3 voices at the same time. Mirage sighed. Apart 3 years and they still act like We love you, Mirage-sensei. They intoned in unison. Brats, she said. So what do we now, sensei? Naruto finally asked after they stopped laughing. We'll go to see the Hokage, file our reports and get certified as a full squad and start doing full team missions again. The redhead said. Yes, Team Mystique is back on the prowl. Naruto said. He looked at Rox. I want my jacket back. He told the big man. Rox nodded and pulled out a scroll from his satchel and handed it to Naruto. And I didn't let my friends use it as a bed. Thanks, Naruto said, opening it and adding blood to the seal. Smiled as a well-worn leather jacket came out. He slipped it on and sighed. Now I feel better. You look better now that you've dropped the glamour and are out of those hideous clothes. Elisa said. Naruto looked a bit older, and his whisker marks were deeper. Also noticeable was his ears had slight points and his blonde hair was brighter. And there was a red streak in it. Rox snorted. You're still short, he said. Well, not all of us have our heads in the clouds. Naruto fired back. Children, Mirage said. Rox shot Naruto a grin and the group walked from their compound, which was just outside the village, and passed through the gates. The guards moved to stop them. Halt. Easy fellas, just me and my team returning after a long-term mission. Mirage said, holding up her Chunin ID badge. Team Mystique. The Chunin guarding the door looked at the list and finally found it. Wow, 3 years, a long time. Yeah, Mirage said, rolling her eyes at her team. We need to make our report to the Hokage. The Chunin looked them over and frowned, seeing Naruto. I don't think he's a part of your team. The Chunin said. And why is that? She asked. He failed the academy. I heard Naruto has been a member of my team for years. If you don't believe me, then escort us to the Hokage and you can take his word for it. She then stepped close. And if I find you passing rumors and lies about him again, I will personally rip out your tongue. The Chu lowing hard. It's just. Do you know what a deep cover assignment is or not? Mirage asked. The Chunin nodded. Naruto has been under deep cover for 3 years. Why do you think he wore those hideous outfits? If you notice, he looks nothing like he did yesterday. When, if I recall, you were chasing him all over Konoha, threatening to kill him for pulling a prank. The man swallowed again as he did recall the event and the fact that he'd been ordered to catch, and instead he used several lethal jutsus to try and kill the blonde. Mirage saw the fear. I will be seeing you with the Hokage later, after I've filed my own report. Don't run off. Ibiki hates to be kept waiting. Team Mystique followed their sensei past the gates and into the village. Civilians looked up and did double takes, seeing the blonde's new appearance. Elisa, walking next to Naruto, looped her arm with his, her red eyes blazing at the civilians who had for the last few years attacked her mate. Rox in front of them stopped in the middle of the street. What is it? Mirage asked. We're being shadowed, he said, and cocked his head to the side as if listening to something only he could hear. 10 of them. He pulled the bow staff from his back and pointed to 4 rooftops and an alley by a fruit stand. They think they're being smart, but they aren't informed that they can't sneak up on an earth elemental. Mirage smirked. Come out, whomever you are. She sing-songed. The masked nin did step out and she sighed. Root, she muttered. Is there something we can help you boys with? She asked, trying to be pleasant. You will come with us now, the apparent leader on the roof said. The others seemed nervous. Probably was briefed on us, but those records are fake. Mirage thought quickly. And why should we come with a group of ninja that by Hokage's orders were to disband? The Hokage doesn't have the power to disband us. Another nin said. Naruto noticed the civilians had vanished, which was good. Elisa released his arm and her long coat opened. Naruto's arms relaxed, ready to grab the bladed tonfa from their place. So, Danzo's a traitor then? Mirage said with a grin. She shook her head. Shame. What is the root? Captain asked. You'll never see him again, she said. Rocks. The big man stomped his foot and the 2 root nin by the alley were swallowed by the ground. Root. Attack, the captain said. Naruto spun, the bladed tonfa singing as they blocked the hail of shuriken. These are mine, Elisa said, and the root watched as she seemed to grow dark and exploded into a cloud of bats which swarmed them. Mirage used the time to shape Change to a man rippling with muscles and standing 8 feet, weighing 400 pounds. She called this form the Hulk, and her huge fist engulfed the captain's head and she squeezed. It took less than a moment and she felt the man's head squish like a grape. Tossing the mess aside, she turned and saw Elisa's bats had shredded 2 nin. Naruto got another 2 and she saw the last one getting away at top speed across the rooftops. "Stop him," she ordered. Elisa's bats gave pursuit as did Naruto. Rocks followed on the ground, Mirage smiling as the blind giant rode upon a wave of dirt, his arms crossed. His iron-capped bow staff across his back. She looked at the mess left and started to search the bodies for information. She also memorized the details of their faces and build. A girl can't have enough outfits, she thought. Finding nothing identifying other than the root mark and weapons, she incinerated the bodies and went after her team. Naruto was running when he saw the wave of dirt passing him, Rocks riding atop it with ease. "Yo, Rockhead, how about a lift?" he yelled and leapt, his trust in his teammate and friend absolute. Elisa and her bats flew overhead. Naruto could see his love, her red eyes ablaze with the hunt. "He's heading to the northern district," Naruto said, standing next to Rocks. "We'll get him before he crosses the wall." Rocks said. "Are you?" Naruto started. "Sorry." They were close when the ninja leapt. 3 things happened. A giant hand of stone rose up and swatted him like a tennis ball. Naruto hurled his tonfa and it buried into the nin's back and Elisa's bats were upon him. When they pulled away, the bloodless corpse hit the ground. Elisa landed next to Naruto and handed him his tonfa. "That was fun," she said, wiping her lips. "The bat's gone." Rocks chuckled. "We rock?" he inquired. "Definitely," Naruto said, his gaze falling on a compound and he could see the angry gaze of a certain council member at being denied. Naruto did the most responsible thing he could think of. He gave Danzo the finger. Naruto stood with Elisa snuggled against him and Rocks leaning across from them against the wall. Even from where they stood they could hear Mirage yelling at the Anbu that showed up. "Late as usual," Naruto muttered. Elisa made a sound as she nuzzled his neck. "Forget the fools. We have more important things to worry about than that old meat sack Danzo." Rocks snorted. "You're telling me you wouldn't love the order to take him in?" The blind man mountain asked. "Didn't say that, ground pounder," Elisa said. "But he's the Hokage's problem. We're just the tools," Naruto said. Growing up as all 3 of them had, they had very little left in illusions as to their roles. Naruto's views had been shattered the day the villagers left him to die. It was the end of his innocence and the day he'd found Elisa. Flashback. The pain racked his body, even as the wounds were healing. "Leave him," one of the civilians said, looking around. "In these woods, trees were dead and the sun was hidden by dark ominous clouds." "Just a minute," the other said. "I can kill him and we'll be heroes. Leave him for the monster of the woods. I hear it drinks the blood of children. What better bait than the demon child?" Naruto didn't understand why they hated him, and why they attacked him. The beatings were worse on his birthday. He'd thought he'd been well hidden this year. But these 2 stumbled upon him as he was trying to scavenge food and had chased him out of the gates. They caught him a mile from town as he tried to enter the woods. The rock slammed into his back. "Drag him out of sight." He heard and felt his legs grabbed and he was dragged for over 10 minutes. Deeper in the woods in a cave that had overgrown with centuries of moss, a onyx street. One coffin lid slid open and a pale slender feminine hand rose. "Someone is in my woods." A pair of glowing red eyes scanned the darkness, pale white skin seemed to glow in the darkness as a young wom. And with raven black hair seemed to float out of the coffin, she wore a midnight blue gown indicating high society. And, someone powerful, and, she closed her eyes. Innocent, drifting virile feet off the ground the girl floated from her cave to investigate. Elisa found them easy enough, the fresh smell of blood drawing her on. 2 men beating a figure on the ground. Her sharp eyesight seeing it was a child, a small boy. She felt rage build inside her, her fangs elongated and she swept the shadows of the dark woods. "You do not belong here," she hissed in an enraged voice, it echoed through the darkness. The villagers looked around, their fear filled the air, as rich as the blood of the boy they were beating. "Leave." They fled. The boy groaned, she wasn't sure if it was from pain, or in thanks. Drifting closer, the smell of pain and blood assaulted her. And something else. Power. Ancient, primal. She looked at the boy, his blonde hair bright even here. She studied him as she fought her bloodlust, keeping the vow she made centuries ago. His whisker-marked cheeks caught her attention, and as his eyes fluttered open revealing a shade of blue never seen before, he muttered a word to his savior. Angel. End flashback. The door opened and Mirage stepped out, not looking happy. Get your asses in here. She barked and they filed in, Rock's last. Naruto stopped before the Hokage's desk. Elisa right next to him. Hey old man, we keep meeting like this. Saint can't stay out of trouble. Not my fault. Danzo's playing games in broad daylight. Remind me again why we aren't allowed to kill him. He has resources the village needs at this time. The Hokage said and Mirage snorted, clearly stating her opinion about the councilman. And his personal army. Now then, the aged Hokage says changing the topic. Mirage tells me that the three of you are eager to get back to full-time team missions. Bet your wrinkled spotted ass we are OG-san. Naruto said with a fox grin. Very well. With the completion of your spying bodyguard mission and the end of the border dispute I hereby announce the reactivation of Team Mystique to active team duty. The three nodded and their leader smiled. About time. Hope you have a good mission to knock the dust off. The redhead said, I thought your killing root operatives in the street did that already. The Hokage sent back to the shapeshifter. Touché. Mirage said with a slight bow at the unspoken reprimand. Remember they are to be captured alive. The Hokage said. Mirage nodded knowing it was easier said than done as. The root operatives always had suicide pills in case they were captured. Your mission. The Hokage said breaking the silence. As AC rank delivery. The Hokage held up the mission scroll. You were to report to the daimyo's court and pick up the package and delivery instructions. Mirage took the mission scroll and smiled. Cakewalk. The Hokage grunted. You would think, but it's been tried sever. All times and bandits keep killing the courier. Won't happen to us. Naruto said. No Kidian. Rox said. Ain't no stoppin' us now. Elisa smiled slightly, her gaze chilling the Hokage. They haven't seen ninja like us before. On that, I agree. The Hokage thought of the special team he'd formed years back. Elisa ageless, Rox while blind was as strong as a mountain and as big as one in many people's opinion. Naruto-kun. The Hokage thought as he looked at the blonde. How he had changed so much over the years, his appearance more dangerous looking. I failed you on so many levels, but you have prevailed over every obstacle. His eyes fell on Mirage, the one woman who was like a den mother and older sister to all three teens. Elisa's older than us all, but she acts like she's human and younger, all for Naruto. Good luck, safe journey, he said and Team Mystique turned to prepare for their mission. Leaving the Hokage Tower they walked a leisurely pace. So, Rox, Naruto began and the big G13 knew his friend was going to be a handful. You spent 3 years with my woman. I knew it, the blind earth mover thought. How'd you keep your hands to yourself? I didn't, Rox said. Add my hands all over your little neck bitter. Mirage sighed. Boys, you know this game never ends well. Elisa didn't care, she was against her mate's side. She had seen the Hyuga following them, and hiding behind trees. Corners of buildings and vendor booths. He's mine. The vampire thought deciding that after the mission her and the Hyuga princess would have words. Sensei. Naruto said to Mirage, why has this mission failed before? Quote, Mirage sighed. It's a treaty between the Fire Lord and the Earth Lord. Many of the smaller villages that aren't as successful as Konoha want the disputes to see. Antinu as it is more profitable for them than the peace that would come about. So, we're taking a scroll. Rox asked. No, the package is the Fire Lord's eldest daughter. Usually the bandits as they are kidnap her, kill the guards and ransom her back to the Fire Lord for a surprisingly low price. You think that there's an insider near the Fire Lord passing on information? Yes, Mirage said. While I was undercover as Iruka, a 3-man Jonin cell was sent. They were poisoned at the castle, but the poison didn't kick in until the following day of travel. Naruto growled. Something else isn't right with this mission. I agree, Mirage said. But the Fire Lord calls, and due to the treaty, we answer. I have a question. Elisa entered the conversation, putting the Hyuga out of her mind. If so many ninja have died, why is this still a C-ranked mission and given to us? We are still technically a genin team. Mirage sighed. It's one of the things I was arguing about with the Hokage. The council accepted the mission behind his back and named our team as the ones that would take it. It seems they knew we were going to be finished with our assignments. Naruto snorted. Worst kept secret. I'm surprised the students didn't know. Mirage nodded. No one except the Hokage knew of her persona of Iruka, so she basically was collecting double pay. Chunin and Jonin, we'll stop and grab gear, and blood packs for Elisa. The vampire pouted. But sensei, I have what I need right here, and a spare. She said, hugging Naruto and nodding her head at the big man next to them. Not on missions anymore unless it's an emergency. Blood pills have been provided. I'm sorry Elisa, but the Hokage's orders. Meddling old man, she muttered but giggled when Naruto licked her cheek. We can improvise. Mirage sighed but saw Rox's grin. You missed out on so much the last 3 years, boss. The big earth mover said. Little Leech made the border guards very scared to cross over. She does that to the villagers here as well. Mirage said. They deserve it. Only I can take Naruto's blood. The vampire said, pinching the blonde's arm. Before this gets to X-rated territory and I need therapy, get your gear. She walked away. Elisa smirked and grabbed her teammates. They vanished in a puff of mist. Mirage looked around and noticing the Hyuga walked several blocks before her image melted into that of a plain-looking woman with short bobbed brown hair and eyes. I need some more info, and what better place to get it than at the alibi room? She thought, slipping into the casino that was owned by a local criminal that was allowed to run his casino and hostel brothel within reason. Taki, haven't seen you in a while. The bartender greeted her. What can I do for you? Mirage, in her guise of the mousy Taki, smiled. I need some info on things around the daimyo's court and the hubbub around his eldest daughter. 2,000 Ryo, and come back tomorrow. The man said. 1. And I need it now. Mirage, Taki said. 1,800 and in 3 hours. 15 and you have 15 minutes. Mirage, Taki countered. Done. The man said, put a bottle of water in front of her. Wait here. Fire daimyo's castle. Rox stood behind Naruto and Elisa. The big man was leaning against his staff, while their sensei, Mirage, was listening to the fire daimyo's majordomo. It is imperative that the princess reach her destination. The treaty is nearly run out and she must be presented to the earth daimyo's court, or fighting will break out once more. Mirage sighed and nodded her head. We understand this. I don't think you do. I mean, sending a genin team in place of experienced jonin, really. You ninja are taking this job way too lax. I think we would be better off using samurai. Mirage bit her tongue, knowing fighting with the man would be pointless. No, I think it would be best if you returned to your Hokage and had him send a proper escort of experienced ninja. The majordomo said. His snobbish attitude was getting to the 3 genin. I assure you my team are worth any jonin the Hokage would send. Mirage said. Which was true. No jonin had the power of any of her team. The majordomo wasn't convinced. I don't think so. Return to your village. I will inform the daimyo that your Hokage isn't taking the safety of his daughter seriously. Perhaps we will need samurai, or to renegotiate a deal with a different village. Naruto was insulted. You mean like the other ninja you're hired outside of Konoha before, for the last several attempts? The man looked at Naruto. Yeah, we read the reports. You hired a jonin and 3 chunin from Konoha the time before that and didn't bother to inform them of the previous attempts. How dare you? The majordomo said. I dare a lot. Of course, being alive is the biggest insult. Smirked. I think it best we speak with the daimyo instead of his chambermaid. The majordomo looked pissed. The Fire Lord is a busy man, and he doesn't have time to see lowly ninja that. I believe I do have the time. They all turned to see the Fire Lord in his robes of office standing there. My lord, I was unaware that. The man ignored the majordomo and scanned the group. Hello Naruto, you've grown. The blonde smiled. It has been 4 years. His blue eyes twinkling. I see you've got another idiot. The Fire Lord laughed. I do seem to go through majordomos. His grandfather served me when I was a boy. Alas, he seems to lack his grandfather's skills and abilities. The daimyo waved the team to follow him, ignoring the sputtering of the majordomo they left behind. So, Hiruzen has sent you and your team to aid me. Yeah, and the file was missing a lot of info. Naruto said. Mirage had shared what she had learned from a contact with her team. The reports were not favorable. You have someone here in the castle feeding information to the bandits. The fire daimyo sighed. I am afraid you were right. I am not sure who to trust. But my majordomo was right. Time is running out. My daughter must stand before the earth daimyo and his court before the new moon, or our treaty will be dissolved. Why is it important for her to be there? Elisa asked finally. She is to be there to welcome the earth daimyo's son home. They will meet in court. Should they approve, they will wed. The treaty is only for them to meet. Rox, who was shuffling along, asked. And someone really doesn't want this peace between earth and fire to happen. Any suspects? Too many, I'm afraid. The daimyo said. They entered the daimyo's private wing. His guards stopped. Interesting looking teammates you have, Naruto. The daimyo said. They are my friends. Naruto said. They saved me, and you saved us. Elisa said, taking his hand. Pretty girl. The Fire Lord said. His eyes studied her for a moment, then he shook his head. That's not possible. What's not, my lord? Mirage asked. She had a clue, but wanted to see what the daimyo would say. I could have sworn I'd met you before. Elisa shook her head. I don't think so. She pursed her lips. You might have met my sister. She looked at Naruto, who shrugged. No, she would need to have been born nearly 60 years ago. I met a woman that looked like you when I was a small boy. Elisa and Naruto shared a look. Rox snorted. Is that all? Stow it, rock head. Elisa hissed. The daimyo didn't hear the byplay as his gaze was on the figure approaching. Ah, my daughter. These ninja are to be your escort. The girl was slender, willowy in her build. She had coal-colored eyes and night black hair. Really, father? They look even more vagabond than the last group that tried. She said haughtily. Team Mystique said nothing. Very well, father. She said with a resigned sigh. I will get ready, but I think I'll be back after another failed attempt. The princess wandered away to get ready. I'm sorry about that. She used to be excited about this, but after the 5th attempt she's become disillusioned about ever getting there. The daimyo explained. My lord. They turned to see the majordomo approaching carrying several papers. My lord. These ninja didn't fill out the proper papers. They can't be used. This is. I know this boy. The daimyo said. And we do not write down our skills, abilities and what weapons we carry for no one. Mirage said coldly to the majordomo. That information is not even given to the Hokage. This is highly irregular. The domo said. How do we know we are getting the proper? Enough. The Fire Lord said, and took the papers and to the horror of his majordomo ripped them up. I have personally paid the Hokage. He knows my request and he sent a team designed to handle this. I don't need to know what they can do. With Naruto here, I know they will do the best job. Thanks, old man, Naruto said, and the majordomo sputtered at the way the blonde addressed the fire daimyo. We'll be at the gate awaiting the princess. Mirage said, wiping the smile from her face. Very well, the daimyo said, and looking at Naruto and his team. Good luck, my boy. Faye, we don't need luck. But Naruto smiled at the daimyo, ignoring Rox's comment. We'll get her there, even if I have to carry her myself. The trip was already half an hour in and the princess was whining from atop the horse. Rox held onto the reins while Naruto and Elisa were on point and rear guard duty. Mirage walked on the other side of the horse. They all were ignoring the girl's whines and instead had their senses ready. Rox, Naruto called. Got him. The man mountain said. Sensei, take the horse. Mirage took the reins from him. How many? She asked. 12. No, 19. Rox said as Naruto and Elisa moved in closer. Naruto's features were more feral and Mirage knew he was using the kitsune abilities he'd absorbed from the fox. They aren't trying to hide too well. I caught a whiff of them. Naruto said as his features relaxed, the canine teeth shrunk and the whisker marks lightened. We've also got a group of 6 coming up from behind. They've been with us since we left the castle. Elisa said. How do you know that? The Fire Lord's daughter asked. Elisa smirked and held up her hand showing a large rat. Spies are everywhere, princess. Ew, was the girl's response as the rat climbed up to Elisa's shoulder. Rox, shelter. Mirage ordered and the princess found herself in a dome made of dirt and rock. Let me out. Pipe down. Naruto said. We'll let you out after we've killed the bandits and those following us. The princess wasn't convinced and continued to yell for them to let her out. Mirage sighed. I think between her and the majordomo we've discovered the spy. My Ryo's on the court, idiot. Naruto said. He wanted too many answers. Elisa nodded with her lover. The princess hasn't had time to send word. Where is the domo did? Your thoughts, Rocks? Mirage asked. I think we're between two groups with different agendas. The big man said. Explain. Those behind us are the princess's choice. Those coming from ahead are with the majordomo. The blind teen said. Suggestions? Mirage asked. Destroy all but one from each group, you inter. Ogate them and we find out what's going on behind the Fire Lord's back. Naruto suggested. Very well. Mirage leapt to the top of the dome and took a seat. Remember children, one of each. She said they heard the group from ahead of them getting closer. Yes sensei. They said, and Mirage watched as rocks sank melted into the ground as if it was water. Naruto smirked and gave Elisa a kiss before becoming more feral looking. His hair becoming longer like a mane, and he leapt to the trees. Boys. Elisa sighed and dissolved into mist. Let me out. The princess whined. Oh, be quiet. Mirage growled as she began to shapeshift. The form she chose was for combat. It was gray-skinned, with scales, black eyes, with an elongated muzzle with fangs and wicked bone spikes on the arms, the hands with wicked claws. Her students years ago dubbed this form, the thing with teeth. Let the games begin, Mirage thought as she leapt up into a tree, ready to pounce on anyone that came close to the Earth Dome that wasn't one of her students. Naruto smiled as he felt his claws slice into the cheap leather armor the bandit wore. He had accepted the fox long ago and they merged, making him a Hanyu. He hid it a lot, and still used his ninja abilities, but in fights like this he loved to cut loose. He knew Rocks was around as several more bandits were sucked into the ground screaming, leaving dark spots where they died. He remembered the first time he'd met the Earth Elemental, shaking his head at how alone Rocks had been living in the wilds away from people because they couldn't tolerate him being blind. But able to see thanks to his abilities with the Earth. Looking up, Naruto watched as the swarm of bats and Elisa tore through the archers in the trees. His mate was keeping them safe from above. What? The disembodied voice asked. Do you have one for sensei to interrogate? Naruto asked as his uppercut swipe ripped the jaw off the bandit before him. 1 second. Naruto watched as one of the remaining bandits was engulfed in a hand of stone. Okay. Naruto nodded and leapt into the last group of 5 on the ground, his claws slashing and his feet kicking out. He didn't stop until a pair of slender cool hands caught his hands and he looked into the red eyes of his mate. Rocks melted out of the ground next to them. What about the other group? He asked, cocking his head to the side, IGN. Oring the tinge of blood and lust from the pair. My wolves have them, Elisa said, her eyes never leaving those of her mate. Children came from above and they looked up seeing their sensei. Work now, play your deviant games later. Yes sensei. The 3 members of Team Mystique chorused. Rocks snorted as his bare foot shifted and he was soon riding a small wave of dirt. Elisa and Naruto share a heated look and leapt to the trees in pursuit. The group that was held off by Elisa's summoned wolves was pathetic. We just want to take the princess home. One of the foppish men said. No, Naruto said. We have our orders from the daimyo and she is going to be delivered this time. Mirage sat above in a tree and smiled seeing her team keeping the men back. Not one of them was a threat. The wide screamed like girls when the wolves had blocked their path. Rocks took the sword from the ringleader and passed it to Naruto. Is that a giant Senbon needle? The blind earth mover asked. No, it's one of those court blades, a rapier. Naruto said with disgust. This has no business outside of court. He snapped the blade with a bit of pressure between thumb and forefinger. Hey, the fop said. Shut it, Naruto growled. He looked up. Sensei. By rights we can kill them. Mirage said with a bored tone. From the dome she heard the princess shriek. Elisa snapped her fingers and the wolves approached. They had the same red-eyed battle look as their mistress. Wait. The fop said. We, run. Naruto said and they waited until the court idiots were 100 yards away before laughing. They turned back to the Earth Dome and Rocks dissolved it after a word from Mirage. The princess looked around wildly for a moment, then seemed to relax when there were no bodies. I demand you take me back to my father. She said. Mirage snorted. Little girl, we're taking you to where you're supposed to be. She looked at her team. Get a move on, I'll catch up after I've had words with our prisoner. Prisoner? The girl asked and saw the stone fist approaching holding one of the bandits. Yes, prisoner, Mirage said. Naruto, you're in charge till I catch up. Get the girl moving. Rocks. Nah, Naruto said, and before the girl could say anything she was back on her horse and the big man had the reins. Elisa-chan, scout please. Naruto said as he took up his position. The vampire smirked and dissolved into mist and seemed to vanish ahead of the group, the wolves surrounding them like an honor guard. No, you can't, the girl protested, but was ignored. I gave your father my word you'd be delivered. Naruto said, not looking at her. His eyes were scanning for danger should Elisa or her wolves miss something. Team Mystique ignored the girl as they continued with the mission. Mystique rejoined them nearly 40 minutes later. It seems that the Majordomo paid them to stop the princess from being presented. He's working with his counterpart in the Earth Daimyo's court to prevent the peace treaty from being cemented. She looked at the princess. A peace that would end decades of war, but then that would be bad for business. So girl, you want to tell us your reason, not that it matters you're going. The daimyo's daughter huffed and crossed her arms, but finally she spoke, her voice was low. I wanted to at first. But after the 5th attempt, I was told I would be killed should I ever marry him. She looked at Mirage. It's self-preservation now, so you rather be a spoiled brat and continue to let people die, just because you were threatened. Naruto said with disgust. Your father has done everything he could to ensure peace for the fire country, and you do this and then don't even tell him. You're trash. The blonde stepped further away, deciding not to voice the rest of his words, as they would have probably destroyed the girl. What am I supposed to do? She asked. I'm not a fighter. They told me if I crossed the border I would be raped and then killed. So you had a couple of the fops of your father's court come to retrieve you? Mirage said. The princess nodded. Sensei. Rocks said. What is it? I'm at the limit of my sensing. There is another group ahead. 6 that are on the ground. They are lax. Mirage looked up to Elisa who was in a tree. Deal with them. No more being nice. She looked at the girl. You will get there this time, girlie, and you will be safe. You have my word on that. She then looked at Naruto. Protection commands. Nadime protocols removed level 3 active. Naruto seemed to glow red for a moment and then to the shock of Daimyo's daughter 3 fox tails formed behind Naruto and he became more feral. Thanks sensei. Naruto said, his voice more harsh. He stretched and flexed. Will you require any others lifted? Mirage asked. The Hanyu smirked. Nah, 3 should do it just fine. Rocks, who had a hand on the ground, shook his head. You should feel what it feels like when you do that. The ground trembles like it's afraid. Mirage nodded. The Nadime protocols were designed years ago. When Naruto absorbed the Kyuubi, they were limiters. Naruto could release them himself if he desired, but it was fun to see Opal's faces when she gave the command and he transformed. Level 9 was a level that both Mirage and the Hokage knew was a major life and death situation, for Naruto at level 9 had the Kyuubi's full power on top of his own. And there was no forbidden jutsu to use as the Sandaime had destroyed it, fearing what someone on the council would do if they knew about the jutsu the Yondaime had used. What is he? Their client asked. Naruto is a Hanyu, a Kitsune Hanyu to be precise. I just released his limiters to level 3 for the rest of this mission. Mirage smiled and knew that Naruto would be very effective as a bodyguard. No one would get to the girl now. Rocks? She asked. Overbite has dealt with the 6 ahead. He said, his fingers buried into the ground. She's destroying the bodies now and will wait for us there. Follow the wolves, he said, rising up once more. You heard him, Mirage said, and they proceeded towards the border once more, Naruto like a ghost and Rox's bare feet not making a sound as they moved. Mirage was very proud of her team. I wonder if the Earth Daimyo's court will be able to protect the traitors. Mirage thought with a sadistic smile. Once I aim them, my team can tear apart Jonin with ease. The only thing keeping them Genin is the thrice-damned council and their fear. Well, I have news for them, there's no stopping them this time. Mirage patted the Seeket with the information she'd gathered before leaving Konoha as well as a scroll from the daimyo after she talked with him in private. This year's Chunin exams will be a whole new ballgame. She though, UGHT at what her team of freaks, as the council called them, would do to the precious genin. Elisa, Rox and Naruto, my students, my friends, my family, my children, you will not be held back any longer. This mission was a way for her to get her team ready and back into formation after the 3-year separation. Putting Elisa and Rox on the border near Iowa, they were praying they got killed. And Naruto, how much you suffered under that disguise, you didn't have you mate and friend there. I had to keep a distance undercover as well. I will make it up to all 3 of you. No more holding back. Mystique is cutting loose, and if it means cutting ties with Konoha to do so, then so be it. Mirage followed at a slower pace, her eyes looking for Danger. She was forming plans if the council in Konoha got involved. That will be later. Now we have a mission and I can't wait to see the Earth Daimyo's reply when he finds out what's been going on. Ahead she saw Elisa looking over Naruto and smiled. Rox's taunts got a dual finger in his direction from the Hanyu and vampire. The girl was silent on her horse, her head was no looking around and her eyes were filled with fear as the border came in sight. Let the games begin. Mirage muttered low. Border patrol, Rox said in a low voice. Too many, Mirage said seeing the group coming at them. We could take them, Naruto said looking over his shoulder at his teammates. Can't we? Quote. Rox chuckled. We could, but the question is, should we? No, Elisa hissed. These are the escort that we were told about. She tapped Naruto's shoulder. Behave or you'll sleep with Rox tonight. Naruto shuddered, and Rox smirked. You sharing your scraps with me already? Man bro, you should get a woman with a pulse and won't kick you aside when she gets moody. Elisa hissed and pulled Naruto to her. I'll pass Rox, Naruto said. Besides, you have gas. Hey, I told you fish and onions doesn't agree with me. The big earth mover said with a shrug. At least it wasn't beans. Elisa said with a shudder. I don't need to breath and he damn near killed me with some of his bodily emissions. Mirage shook her head. Children, we're professionals. Act like it. She watched as the 3 genin under her command straightened. Elisa, greet the honor guard. Make sure they are who they say they are. The vampire nearly floated over the ground as she went ahead. Rox stood near the daimyo's daughter holding the reins to keep her from bolting. Naruto. He held up a hand, his eyes were focused on the incoming guards. They are not slowing to meet Elisa-chan. He said. You have your orders, Mirage said. Naruto leapt ahead, the chakra around him like a vortex. Rox, guard. The dome of stone formed around the girl and horse, Rox standing in front of it, his staff in his hands. Mirage leapt on top of the dome and pulled out a pair of curved blades. They aren't slowing at all, Rox muttered as the vibrations hit his feet. Naruto will slow them down, she said. The pair waited, Rox reading the vibrations as Naruto tore the first 2 guards off their horses, while coming up from the rear, Elisa sank her fangs into the neck of one while her summoned wolves tore into the flanks of the horses. Mirage had to admit, the pair were very dangerous and when unleashed they were damn scary. One rider got ahead of Naruto as he dismounted another pair. Sensei, Rox asked. Yes you may, Mirage answered the unasked question. Rox motioned with his hand in a chop motion and spike formed up from the side and sent the rider and horse flying. You blunted them, Mirage accused. Didn't want to hurt the horse. The blind earthmover said. Mirage sighed. The ASPCA won't care. You pay the fine then, he said without looking. His foot tapped the ground lightly and a boulder shot into the air. He flicked it with his finger and it rocketed towards the dismounted rider and slammed into him at the speed of a train. Mirage looked to see Elisa dragging one rider by his ankle while the wolves nipped at the man. She could hear him sobbing in fear from here. Naruto was following and she saw he had turned the battlefield into a house of carnage. Naruto, go rinse off, she said, not wanting to be downwind of him. Elisa paused and kissed his blood-spattered face before he headed off to use water jutsus. The vampire dropped the man before the earth dome. Mirage looked down at him. Give me one reason to spare your miserable life, she said. He babbled and spilled everything he knew, from the job they were on to the fact he wet his bed Till he was 7 and he had raped his cousin when he was 12. And that's all, I swear. Mirage looked at him in disgust. Elisa, dispose of this trash. The vampire snapped her fingers and the wolves feasted while the man's screams soon died in a gurgle as one of the wolves ripped out his throat. Naruto returned in a damp t-shirt and black pants, his jacket tied around his waist, shades covering his eyes. Sensei. They were sent to make sure the princess never reached her location, Mirage said as they started walking. The girl had fainted hearing the man's screams. Elisa took up position on Naruto's other side. We can move faster if we abandon her horse, Naruto said. Mirage shuddered. I do not want to shadow walk unless it's an emergency, she said. Elisa could take us all, it would save time. Naruto argued. I want answers and proof. She held up a recorder. I will present the Earth Daimyo with the treachery of his court. She sighed. We have another day of travel. We'll set up camp near the stream. Rocks. Dig the pit, Naruto, tense. Elisa. I know. Food, she said, digging out a scroll. I demand. The girl started, but Mirage quieted her with a look. Off the horse. Sit. She pointed at a rather flat rock. Once the girl was down, Mirage undid the saddle and bridle before getting a rag and wiping the horse down. Why do you do that? The girl asked. Why not have one of them do it? She said, gesturing lazily at one of the others. Because we all do our tasks, it's what makes us a team. Everyone does their share. Night came and rocks created stone barriers around the camp that made the walls of Konoha look small. In their tent, Naruto and Elisa were engaged in activities of a more personal nature. Do it, she hissed, and a moment later he was buried deep inside of her. Their bodies dancing a dance as old as time, one that intimate lovers worldwide did. Outside the tents on guard duty, Rocks sighed as he heard their grunts and groans. Bastards, he muttered, wishing he was deaf instead of blind. From her tent Mirage snickered. Got to say something about inhuman stamina, she thought as the pair continued their love-making well into the night, guaranteeing that no one slept much. The Fire Lord's daughter lay there wide-eyed, clutching her pillow. Morning found the energized and sated pair of Naruto and Elisa packing up the camp while Mirage nearly drained the whole pot of coffee. Rocks had dug himself into a hole and covered it to keep the noise out, glared at his teammates from behind his headband. You suck, he said. Of course I do, Elisa said, not taking her eyes off her lover as he ate. I'm a vampire. Rocks sighed and turned his head where he heard Mirage sitting. They have those lovey-dovey grins, don't they? I can hear it from here. Both, Rocks said. Jealous, Elisa said, the grin in her voice. Leech, gravel head, morning princess, Naruto said, cutting off his teammate's bicker, flirting. Sleep well. The girl looked at him as if he was insane. Elisa pulled her hood up and sighed. We'll reach the Earth Daimyos before sunset, she said. Rocks, Mirage said. Yeah, I can do it, but if there's a fight I'll be tired. Do what? The princess asked. Ever ride a wave? Naruto asked. The other members of Team Mystique smirked and the princess had a bad feeling in her stomach. She's a screamer, Elisa said with distaste. The group was riding a wave of dirt. Rocks was powering it, his concentration on the task at hand. Naruto reached over and pinched her nerve cluster, knocking the princess out. Thank you, the vampire said, snuggling against him. He saw Mirage's look. What? She was letting everyone in 5 miles know where we were, he said. Mirage checked the map and compass. Take us down here, she said to Rocks, who slowed the tidal wave of Earth and flattened it out. What's wrong? Naruto asked, stretching his senses out. This is the meeting spot, but no one's here, Elisa said. No, someone's here, Naruto said. Rocks was on his knees. 2, 3, they aren't moving, but their heartbeats are strong. We'll wait. I want, was as far as Mirage got before the area exploded and nearly 20 men came from above. Shit, Naruto's leap took him straight up. Mirage smirked at the sight and she wondered what released all 9 levels. She didn't get a lot of time to reflect as she was forced to dodge. Arrows and her curved blades were in motion, slicing arrows out of the air. Rocks formed a dome of earth over himself as he recovered his strength. He wouldn't be an issue for several minutes. Elisa seemed to turn to mist. Appear behind one and rip his throat out with her bare hands, and repeat the process. Naruto in the air was a blur and 3 men screamed as they had gaping holes in their chests. Naruto landed and Mirage saw him covered in blood. A sadistic look in his eyes indicated that he was enjoying the battle and carnage. He leapt at another one, and his fist went into the man's chest and came out with the still beating heart. Naruto smirked and rammed that heart into the face of another man, snapping his neck with the force of the blow. Naruto turned away, the heart in the dead man's mouth. This display coupled with Elisa's appearance broke the rest of them and they began to flee. "Oh no you don't," Elisa said, and the howls of wolves showed that she had summoned them and they chased down the bandits or whatever they were. Naruto stood, blood dripping from his mouth. In his hand was one of the attackers, Naruto's claw-like hand around his neck. "Sensei," he said, and Mirage landed. She saw he was wearing the mark of one of the villages in the region. "Why did you attack us?" Mirage demanded. The man fought to get out of Naruto's grip, but the blonde was currently powered by 3 taels worth of chakra and that increased his strength, so the man wasn't going anywhere. "I'll ask again. If I have to ask a 3rd time, my student here rips out your throat," Mirage said in a cold voice. "Sensei," Elisa said, stepping forward. "If I may," she asked. Mirage nodded. "I forgot about that. Naruto, put him on his knees, hold him steady." The blonde smirked, showing his canine's air peeking out, giving him a very feral look as he dropped the man and with simple movements had the man's arms behind his back and him on his knees. Elisa looked at him, her eyes becoming brighter, the red irises shined. "Tell me your secrets," she said in a soft voice. Mirage watched as the man was caught by her gaze. What is she doing?" the Fire Lord's daughter asked. "Hypnotism. It's one of Elisa's many abilities," Mirage answered. She looked at rocks. "You okay now?" "Yes, sensei. I am sorry for being weak." Mirage patted the big man's arm. "You are far from weak. The amount of dirt and rock you moved and the distance we covered, you are not weak. Besides, you were winded as all." She smiled and looked back to see the man's face blank. "Ask your questions now, sensei," Elisa said in the same flat tone. Mirage stepped forward. "Now, tell me who sent you." "Earth Daimyo's court, my lord. It seems that once again the Fire Lord has failed to send his daughter," his majordomo said with a large amount of distaste showing. The Earth Lord sighed as the sun was reaching the horizon. "It seems so. The treaty is broken," the majordomo said. "Should I send for your generals?" The Earth Daimyo looked across the court and sighed. He was tired of battles and wars that had no real point. He was about to speak, but there were shouts from outside the hall. The majordomo spoke to a guard who rushed off. The Earth Lord noticed that the man looked nervous for some reason. "Stop, you can't go in there," was heard being shouted. Sounds of battle had many in the court looking nervous, and a scream filled the air from beyond the sealed doors. "What is going on out there?" the Earth Daimyo asked his counselor. Before the majordomo could respond, the doors exploded off their hinges. Standing in the doorway was a sight that made several of the courtesans wet themselves, and many more to faint. "I have a special delivery for the Earth Daimyo." The demonic voice of Naruto carried over the screams. He ignored them, standing there in his demonic glory. Behind him 3 chakra tails moved, his blue eyes were red with slits, his canines elongated and his fingers tipped with wickedly sharp claws. The whisker marks dark and foreboding on his cheeks. His hair long and spiky hung down his back. Behind him Elisa stood in her full vampiric glory, wolves, rats and bats decimating the guards trying to stop them. Mirage strode in with rocks and a throne of stone on which the Fire Daimyo's daughter sat. "No," the majordomo said. "No," he said again. "Guards, stop them." Elisa smirked as her lover ripped the arms off the nearest guard. "Neither rain, nor sleet, nor annoying traitors will stop this delivery from taking place." Naruto spoke as he bludgeoned another guard with the arms he'd just ripped off the first. More guards were coming. Rocks sighed. "Nah." He stomped his foot and a slab of rock erupted from the ground, blocking off the corridor. Elisa turned her wolves upon the guards. Naruto walked with the throne holding the Fire Daimyo's daughter, slaughtering any who dare approach. "Guards, stop them, kill them." The majordomo's voice was nearly a shriek. Mirage followed her student. admiring his dedication to destruction. Once they reached the stairs leading to the daimyo, they stopped. Mirage stepped forward. "My lord, I present to you the daughter of our Fire Lord, the Lady Katara Bay Sensei. As agreed upon, she is here to cement the alliance." "No," the majordomo screeched and drew a knife from his kimono. He never took a step as 3 blades embedded themselves in the man. One in the chest piercing the heart, another in the throat and the last between the eyes, all 3 buried to the hilts. Mirage relaxed her stance and sheathed the last blade while Naruto looked around, daring anyone to interfere once more. "It seems you have a tale to tell," the Earth Lord said, looking at his former advisor and the carnage that took less than 5 minutes from the door to the throne on which he sat. "That I do," Mirage said. The Earth Lord motioned and his son stepped from the side. The youth looked pale and winced when Naruto looked at him. "My son, greet your bride." The young man looked at the woman to be his wife. He looked at the majordomo's corpse. "He promised me she'd never be here. I could marry who I wanted." Naruto snorted and everyone watched as he seemed to power down. But Mirage knew he was still powered by 3 tails, he was just concealing it better. "All this cause you wanted nookie from a scullery maid," the blonde said in disgust as he walked back towards Elisa. The many merchants and fops backed up as he passed. He stopped by Rocks. "You see why I hate politics now?" the blonde asked the man mountain. Rocks snorted. "I don't see anything, bro. I'm blind as a bat." Quote. Naruto laughed and patted his shoulder before meeting Elisa, who suddenly looked coy and smiled at him. "I thought you promised me something once we delivered the girl," she said, her hands behind her back. "Did I?" Naruto asked with a grin. Behind him he heard Rocks. "Oh, man, if you two are going to do that, get a room. I'm blind, but even I don't need to see that. Go suck a river rock," Elisa said and looked back at her mate, who smirked at her. "I might need to be reminded of what I promised," Naruto said. Elisa looked over his shoulder. "Sensei, go. Don't come back until you've both bathed." She pointed at Naruto. "He's wearing someone's entrails. I thought it was a new necklace," the blonde said. Shaking her head, she kissed Naruto, both covered in blood and gore, and sank into the shadows. Many of the people had weak stomachs as she licked his face, which was covered in blood, before they fully vanished. Yum, nobleman," Elisa's voice carried, and Mirage sighed before looking at the daimyo. "Sorry, they're young and in love," she said, before giving her report and knowing she'd have to give it twice more. Once to the Fire Lord and then to Hokage. "I wonder if I could con Rocks to give the report," she thought before telling the Earth Daimyo of the lies, the deception, and the amount of money spent by his son and the majordomos of both courts to keep the war going and to avoid marriage. The Fire D at the young man who was going to be her husband. And Mirage was glad she wasn't a diplomat, as this was one hell of a mess. "I doubt there will be a wedding now. But still, they are a cute pair of kids, just spoiled rotten," she thought. Since the mission for the Fire Lord, Team Mystique had been stuck on D-rank missions. It wasn't that they were being punished. Despite the council screaming about the diplomatic nightmare that they were being blamed for, despite that they uncovered it, the Hokage was hoping that with them out of sight and doing the lower-ranked missions, they would avoid the council. Babysitting was not for them, as Elisa and Naruto scared the children, despite them being actually behaved and nice to them. Rocks the children climbed all over, and he would get down on the ground with them. Weeding, painting and grocery delivery was much the same vein. Elisa and Naruto took the jobs in silence, even Rox's jokes didn't get a rise. Mirage was doing undercover missions for the Hokage, leaving the 3 alone a lot of the time. Naruto, since the Nadaime protocols were activated, he'd taken on a more feral appearance. "What happened?" Elisa asked him at night after they'd spent hours making love. "I think after such a long period of being contained, I'm going to have at least 2 levels of power unlocked." Yuto said softly as he ran a hand through her hair and down her spine. This of course was noticed by council members and their spies. They called for the destruction of the monsters. Naruto sighed as he painted the barn. The owner lived outside the village walls and the farm was a nice place, and the man hadn't really anything against the team. His wife was a busybody and glared at the trio. Rocks hated painting, as he couldn't really see what he was doing. He trusted his teammates to let him know when he missed a spot and to give him the right color. They gave him the roller to use. Just keep your heads down. They'd been told by Mirage. It'll all blow over and you'll be in the Chunin exams this year. I promise. It had been a long couple of years and they hadn't been allowed in the past. Why did Mirage think that this time would be different? They got their answer the week before the exams. Team Mystique Compound. Say that again. Naruto looked at Mirage, who was in the form of Iruka. As you know, I've been using the Iruka persona. About that, you told the whole class. How come no one knows? Naruto asked, cutting off his sensei. Used a memory seal. They forgot about it the moment they left the classroom. Mirage said with a grin. Now, as you know, I've been working the Hokage's office as his assistant. While we've got D-rank missions. Rox said, eating a large roll. It had to be done. We did nothing wrong. But the council is displeased. It seems that there are elements on it that were passing information to the Majordomo in the Fire Daimyo's court. Naruto growled. Bastard took a suicide pill before he could be questioned. And the Majordomo for the Earth Lord was killed by us. By you, sensei. By you. Naruto corrected. I'm the one who killed 30 guards, but the domo was all yours. Mirage nodded. Too many things are adding up and the Hokage and I both don't like where they're pointing. She stopped seeing a messenger bird land and the scroll W. As sporting the seal of Konoha's council. Naruto took it and the bird flew away. He saw his name on it. Seems the old farts have something to say to me. Council chambers. Naruto appeared with Mirage and Elisa. You were summoned, Naruto Uzumaki. They however were not. One of the many elders gathered stated. Yeah, where's the Hokage? He asked. He is not needed for this. Homura said. You two, leave. Danzo ordered. Mirage looked at those in attendance. I don't think so. You dare disobey the. Yes. You have no authority. If this were a shinobi matter, the Hokage would either deal with it or be here. This is just an attempt by you fossils to justify the millions of ryo you cost this village every year by trying to do something to my student who is a loyal ninja of this village. Danzo scowled and snapped his fingers. A dozen Anbu appeared. Naruto Uzumaki, it has been decided that should you enter this coming Chunin exam, you will wear the suppression bracelets. The whisk, marked blonde looks at the bands that would be placed around his wrists. You have no right. Mirage barks. There is where you are wrong. With genin teams coming from other villages, we will need make sure that this genin doesn't cause unwanted bloodshed and start a war with his brutality. Komura said with disdain. The unspoken thing she replaced genin with was evident to all. Elisa bared her fangs at the Anbu as it got closer, her eyes becoming even redder. You will not touch him. Stop this. Everyone in the room turned to see the Hokage looking at the gathered counselors, rage in his eyes. His eyes took in the Anbu and the mark they wore. Snapping his fingers brought 24 Anbu. I thought I told you to disband your root forces. He said to Danzo, ignoring the tension in the room as he walked in. Root is disbanded, Lord Hokage. These are my personal guard, as is my right. Danzo said, a smug look on his face. The Hokage knew the man was using schematics, but couldn't put a fight about it without a lot of damage taking place to the village. And the purpose of this meeting? He asked, looking at his former teammates who refused to meet his gaze. We received Ned reports from some of the villages sending their genin here without something being done about Uzumaki. Many of the villages heard of his actions in the Earth Lord's court. The carnage he left behind. The fact he delivered the Fire Daimyo's daughter. The fact he was part of the team that uncovered and protected her from harm has no meaning to you. Mirage questioned. He should have handled it another way. Komura says. Now we need to give assurances to the visiting teams and their villages. Not without my authority, nor that of the Fire Daimyo. The Hokage said. Click. Everyone spun to see Naruto clicking the bracers shut. Why? Elisa asked. Naruto didn't answer. Mirage Sensei is given the unlocking seal. Naruto said. I don't trust you old farts. I do this for the old man and Konoha. The Hokage sighed. Naruto did what he did, because he knew that the council would fight every step of the way. My team and I are in the Chunin exams, we take our chances like everyone else. Naruto said. The council looked pleased with their victory. I'll take that seal now. Mirage said. At this the council looked nervous. What? The Hokage asked, a sinking feeling forming in his stomach. The seal, we have it designed so that it's attached to someone's chakra, Homura said reluctantly when it looked like no one else was going to speak. The Hokage was pissed. So in order for those to come off, is that the holder of the seal has to die? He looked at Danzo. Who have you tied it to? The three tried to avoid the Hokage's eyes, but he snapped his fingers. Anbu, if they don't answer by the count of 3, kill them. The loyal Anbu stepped behind the 3 counselors. 1. Homura twitched and Danzo looked at the Hokage with a measure of disdain. 2. Kaharu looked at the other 2 in fear. 3. We tied to you, Kaharu said in fear as the blade came up to slit his neck. What? We had an agent apply it during your physical exam. The only way for the bracers to come off is if you die. And you know I'll do everything I can to protect the old man. Naruto said, his head down. Once more his brash actions had consequences. He'd put the bracers on T.O. save the Hokage a fight that he didn't need, and now he was handicapped until the old man died. The Hokage was not pleased. Take them to Ibiki. Tell him they are not to be released until I say so. The Hokage waited, leaving him with Naruto, Elisa and Mirage. My boy. It's not your fault, Oji-san. I put them on, thinking I was protecting you from a fight you didn't need. You have so much to said, cutting him off. I leapt without looking again. You're right, I am impulsive. Sir, is there any way around the seal they're talking about? Mirage asked. The Hokage shook his head. Alas, no. While I was under for the tests they must have applied to my chakra core. The only way for it to happen is if I die. He put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. I am so sorry, Naruto. You'll live another 100 years. Naruto said, putting on a fake grin. Now, we need to prepare for the exam. If you'll excuse us, he asked and received a nod, vanished with Elisa in a blast of flame and smoke. The Hokage looked at Mirage. Things are looking like you predicted. He stepped towards the door. You know what to do. He left as Mirage nodded and became a perfect copy of Homura. Time to dig up some skeletons. Naruto rolled over and studied his lover's bare shoulder. He knew she wasn't happy with what he did. He wasn't pleased with the end result either, but he did what he always had since that day. He protected the Hokage. He sighed. I'm sorry. No, you're not, Elisa said, her back to him still. You would do the same thing over and over. She still didn't look at him, and he knew she was pissed. They had returned to Team Mystique's compound and their room in silence. It's one of your best and most frustrating qualities. Elisa continued. We're in the exam, Naruto said. I'd rather remain a genin than have you bowing to any demands by those foolish humans. Now she did roll over and propped herself up on an elbow, looking down at him. Naruto smiled as she looked at him. They think they handicapped me. But I still have several tales of power to me that became permanent after the release protocols. He saw her red eyes looking him over. What? She leaned in and kissed him. Don't make light of this, she said after she pulled back. You are my mate and I am yours. Remember, no lies between us. Naruto nodded as she stroked his whisker marks. His own hand cupped her cheek, his thumb ran over her lips lightly. It became a defense mechanism over the last few years. I'm trying to break it. Sorry. Elisa nipped his thumb. We'll see what these do, she said, touching the band on his wrist. The two made love, Elisa needing it to be slow and tender, reassurance that her mate was fine. I know you two are kinky, but bondage with the aid of the council is a whole new level. Rocks said the next day when they showed up for training. Bite me. That's her job, Rocks said in answer to Naruto's statement. Sensei, Elisa asked. We're in. We have the same chance as any team, except that we're more skilled than the teams coming in. She waited while that sunk in. We've also been given a task, she said. And that would be? Naruto asked, his arm around Elisa's waist. We are to watch over and make sure that the Uchiha makes it too. No, Naruto said. The stuck-up bastard can take his chance, we're not making it easier for him. This is a mission from the council, Mirage said. And how much are they paying? Elisa asked. And who on the council is asking for this? Danzo and the old man's teammates are locked up still, Naruto asked. Leah Haruno of the civilian council, Mirage said. And the price? Mirage shook her head. They expect our loyalty to Konoha to be payment. Naruto laughed. Was the old man there? Nope. Which is why I recorded the meeting and passed the footage on to the Sandaime. He was not pleased. And what has he said? We'll keep an eye on the Uchiha, but we are not to help him. He must do the task with his teammates and take his chances that way. Mirage said with a grin. You are not to engage or confront him. Naruto snapped his fingers. And here I thought we'd be allowed to eliminate the weak competition. Mirage smiled. That can happen during the second exam. It'll take place in the Forest of Death. Elisa laughed. Some call it hell, we call it home. Rox snorted. I'm blind and I know you've got that feral look on your face. Naruto smirked. So, we have to behave in the first exam, but the second one we get to cut loose. The Hokage prefers that you vent on the visiting teams should they prove hostile. Mirage said. What aren't you telling us, sensei? Elisa asked. Damn vampire senses. Mirage muttered. The Hokage has informed me that Danzo and the others will be released for the exam, to present a united front before the visiting dignitaries. Naruto growled. And he's told us to test your limits with those bands on. Naruto nodded, stepped away from Elisa. Let's take this to the extreme, he said, and moved to the training field. Over the next hour they smiled as they found they didn't really do much to Naruto in his abilities. You can go up to 4 tails in Power Max, Mirage said as they sat. Quote, which doesn't mean much as you currently have about 3 tails activated. The Hokage has discovered there are things you need to know about them. They have what's called obedience seals, which when activated will cause you pain. They are like the Hyuga's caged bird seal. And, Elisa asked, taking Naruto's hand. They have a suicide seal. I'll kill them. Elisa snarled, rising to her feet. The Hokage has a gag seal on them. They can't activate it, Mirage said as Naruto pulled the vampire back and into his lap. This sucks, Rox said. If it wasn't for the power the council has gathered after the death of the Yondaime, they would be disbanded by now. Sadly, only the successor to the Yondaime, or an elected Hokage, can take the power back. The Sandaime just resumed his duties after the death of the Yondaime, and thus the council used the loophole to gain the powers that were littering the wayside. Rox sighed. I left my perfectly quiet mountain to put up with this. You were bored, Naruto reminded his friend. The Earthmover sighed. This will teach me to whine about being bored. Look at it this way, Blinky. You've had a lot of fun since teaming with us. Elisa said. True, Rox admitted. And I've managed to visit numerous lands and villages since then. Shame you can't see them. Elisa taunted. Bitch, bat, blood-sucking fiend, blind pervert. Stop, Mirage said, cutting off the insult fest that she knew would grow to something that would turn to them fighting. We need to focus on the exams. You two can flirt later. Naruto laughed at the look of outrage Fro his mate and the one on his blind friend's face. I would rather kiss an Uchiha. Rox muttered. That can be arranged, Elisa said. And knowing the frigid bastard, he'd enjoy it. Naruto added, and Rox looked sick. There is one more thing, Mirage said, getting their attention back. The council lied about the seals. In what way? Elisa asked. They are bound to the Hokage, but they are also bound to Danzo. But in order for his to work, the Hokage has to die. Son of a bitch, Naruto hissed. And his are tied to the suicide seal. You can bet if anything happens to the Hokage, Naruto will be in pain until he bends to the will of the council. And we can't kill Danzo. Why? Elisa demanded. Because he has it set up that if he dies, the Hokage dies. He's been very careful in that regard. Naruto growled, and the amount of chakra released caused a nearby lantern to explode. Anything else, sensei? Rox asked. Naruto has a twin brother. He's betrothed to a Hyuga. His mom's an Uchiha. Naruto said. Not about the brother or the Hyuga, but God, kill me if mom was an Uchiha. She's not, Mirage said. And no, we already know his parentage. She shot a look to Naruto, who nodded. Mom was from Whirlpool and dad. Well, only a moron couldn't guess who he was. People in large groups are stupid, and it breeds quickly. Rox said. Alright, enough maudlin shit, let's get you ready for the Chunin exam. Mirage said. The day arrived for the Chunin exams, and Team Mystique stood atop the Hokage monument overlooking the village as the sun rose. Elisa had her cloak about her with the hood up. Naruto stood next to her, his eyes closed as he allowed the morning breeze to caress him. Rox knelt before them, his own eyes closed as he listened to the earth on the activity that was taking place below them. Behind them in the shadows, Mirage looked at her team and knew that soon the future would change all, and she prayed that they were alive to see what it had in store for them. I do what I must. I hope they understand when the time comes. She thought as her form shifted and she became male, with silver hair and a pair of glasses were added to her nose. Good luck my students, we're all going to need it. Mirage slipped away in her latest guise. Team Mystique arrived at the academy where the first exam would be taking place. Naruto in the middle with Rox and Elisa on either side. He pushed the door open and they climbed the stairs. Here he frowned. What room is the exam in again? He asked. 301. Elisa said as they looked at the mass of genin trying to enter a room, only to be rejected by a pair of jonin. We only came up one flight of stairs. Rox said in a low voice. There's a heavy genjutsu blocking the real stairs in the room. Those two are guarding. Naruto said back to the blind earth mover. You get the impression where the stairs are. Rox nodded. Looks like it's to weed out the weak. Naruto said. Come. This isn't our concern. Rox, lead. He said ND the blind genin led them around the room, avoiding many of the genin of various smaller villages that were here, and Rox walked right through a wall which was really the genjutsu. The thing with being blind is genjutsus don't work on me. That and I sent a pulse out, and followed the trail. Rox said with a grin as they climbed the stairs. Elisa sniffed as she pointed at the runes etched onto the rail. Silencing runes to keep those that find the stairs from giving away the position. Naruto nodded and trusted his lover as she did have more knowledge than he. The only reason she was a ninja was to be with him. They finally reached the third floor and passed several jonin who were waiting for their students. What are you doing here? Naruto turned to see the one-eyed silver-haired jonin blocking their path. Taking the chunin exam, he said. What are you doing here Hatake, and on time? Naruto had met the man several times over the years. I'm waiting for my team. And how are you allowed? I thought the council banned you. Naruto chuckled. Loophole. So you're the poor bastard that got stuck with the Uchiha. I almost pity you. So, did you ignore the rest of your team and stuff the bitch full of jutsu? Kakashi ignored him by pulling out and reading his book. Naruto wasn't bothered. They never got along since the day Naruto found out the man was supposed to protect him and just stood by watching as a mob beat him. Since that day Naruto kept a close eye whenever the jonin was around, and Elisa had offered to kill him several times, but the Hokage had forbade them as a skilled jonin and they had need of him. The Hokage usually kept Kakashi well away from them. Brats. They turned to see Mirage step out from behind another jonin. Hey boss lady, Rox said with a grin. Were he to kick ass and take names? Sadly Rox is blind, Elisa said. The man mountain shrugged. So I'll just kick ass. You can do the secretary stuff. Elisa narrowed her eyes. Do I look like a office jockey to you? Mirage smirked as Rox waved a hand in front of his eyes. I don't know, I'm blind overbite. Rock humper. Elisa shot back. Fiend. Walking advertisement for birth control. That would be the Uchiha. Naruto said. They all turned hearing a shout and saw as the Uchiha was in the process of getting his ass kicked by a boy with a bowl cut and wearing green suit. So much for the prodigy. Naruto said loud enough for Kakashi to hear it. He looked at Mirage. I know. Keep our heads down and remember your orders. Both sets. Naruto paused and then nodded. Flashback. It was well after 2 in the morning when there was a presence in the room. Naruto opened his eye. What do you want sensei? Is Elisa here? Naruto looked around. She's probably preparing blood pills for the exam. He said sitting up. What do you need? Mirage stood there for a moment then sighed. We received a report that Oto and Suna are going to use the exam as cover to invade. Naruto blinked. And you're telling me this, why? You have separate orders. If during the second or third part of the exam you encounter the Oto or Suna teams, you are to kill them. Naruto nodded. Anything else? Yes. The children of the Kazekage are in this exam. The youngest son is the Jinchuriki of Shukaku. His mind is unstable and you are to take him out in the second exam. Search and destroy. These orders come from the Hokage. Naruto sighed and bowed his head. As the Hokage commands, I obey. End flashback. Naruto blinked as Elisa touched his arm. Wool gathering. He gave her a grin. Just thinking of what this test will mean for us all. He told her. He hadn't had a chance to tell her or Rocks, he would do so once they entered the second exam. They entered the door in the first Art of the Chunin exam was about to begin. Team Mystique looked on as the rookie teams entered. He saw the Ino Shika Cho remake in their children. His eyes went to Team 8 and shook his head as Hinata looked at him and blushed while Kiba was loud and boasting that they were going to kick ass. Team 9 entered and Naruto nodded to Tenten and Neji, his eyes landing on Rock Lee, and knew that despite his handicap, the genin had taijutsu skills that made him high chunin or low jonin in ability. His gaze went to the door once more as Team 7 entered. Sakura and Sasuke were followed by Saiken. Ino bed onto Sasuke and Naruto shook his head at the display the genin of Konoha were putting on. He took note of the Suna and Odo teams, but he was distracted by Elisa, who buried her elbow in his gut. What? The vampire nodded and he took note of the silver-haired genin with glasses talking to the Uchiha. Rock Lee, Gaara of the desert, he heard the Uchiha say. He watched the silver-haired teen shoe FFLE a deck of cards and pull up classified information and read it aloud for all to hear. Rocks, Naruto said. Got him. The blind earth mover said. His heart flutters, he's lying about several things. Elisa, mark him, Naruto said, and he watched as his lover moved with the grace of a jungle cat and scrap Kabuto's neck, helping him up after the sound Nin attacked him. She returned and nodded, licking her fingertip. Done. You will tell us why later. Naruto nodded and would have spoken to her, but the front of the room exploded with smoke bombs, and when it cleared, the front of the room was filled with Chunin and one very special jonin. Ibiki. Naruto frowned as the head of the interrogation department ordered everyone to seats. They had a minute to find a place to sit. Naruto found Rocks a seat and got to his own assigned place. Ibiki gave the orders for the exam and Naruto groaned. Paper test. No, wait, there's more to it than that. Ibiki looked around the room and took note of many of the people. The Chunins were cutting them down quickly, and Ibiki wished that they could fail the Uchiha. The little bastard blatantly used his Sharingan. He'd gotten it on the failed C rank upgraded to A rank mission that they lost the client on. They just left the hospital yesterday. They do not belong here. Ibiki thought with distaste. His eyes noted that Team Mystique was here. The blonde was doodling on his paper. The girl he knew was cheating, but couldn't see how in the Walking Man Mountain. Ibiki blinked. I think we made a miscalculation. Forgot this one was blind. He gestured to 1-0. F the Chunin, who nodded and marked it down. And the girl and the blonde aren't intimidated. Of course, if half the ninja were like them, then we'd really have a solid group. Ibiki hated how the council kept interfering in the blonde's life. He's a ninja of Konoha and they still meddle. Several more teams were eliminated. Ibiki noted that Guy's team did very well. The bun-haired girl had placed mirrored blades in the ceiling during the seating arrangements, allowing the Guy clone to copy. Ibiki noted several others and knew a long exam. Enko's going to have a field day. He knew the orders the Hokage gave him 10 minutes before the start of the exam. Flashback. Ibiki. A word. Ibiki stopped at the door and waited until the Chunin were out and sealed the door. I know the council has ordered you to pass the Uchiha. Ibiki nodded, his displeasure evident on his face. I have 3 operatives in place. I need them to advance as well. Ibiki looked at the old man, betrayed. Naruto Uzumaki and his teammates must get to the next part of the exam. They are under special orders from me. May I inquire as to what? Ibiki asked. The Hokage puffed on his pipe. They are according to the council to protect the Uchiha. But I've countermanded that order. Their real task is to eliminate the Oto and Suna teams in the second part of the exam. I could fail. The Hokage shook his head. The Cage's youngest must be dealt with. Jiraiya has sent reports that they plan to use the third part of the exam to invade. Ibiki snarled. So we're using our weapons to wipe out theirs. The Hokage knew what he meant. Team Mystique was seen as weapons by the council and many of the ninja. I hate to see it that way, but Naruto and his team are the only ones who can do it. They are the only ones that can move about the forest and kill who we need. End flashback. Ibiki saw it was time and announced it was time for the final question. He made eye contact with Naruto Uzumaki and wished the kid luck with his mission. Naruto and Elisa looked around the forest. They weren't concerned about getting a scroll. They had both minutes after entering the forest when a group from Iowa tried to ambush them. Rocks buried them under the ground, killing them, then brought the bodies up and they were stripped of their gear and the scroll they needed. "Ah, it's good to be home," Naruto said, lacing his fingers behind his head as he walked. The predators of the forest feared these three more than any being that crossed the border of their lands. "Anyone else nearby rocks?" Naruto asked. The big man touched the ground. "No, the nearest team now would be the Tsuna team." Naruto shook his head. "Are we going to do as ordered?" Elisa said. Her voice remained flat, but Naruto knew his mate well enough to know that she was not pleased. "We need to remove the Tsuna team," Naruto said with a hint of distaste. "And what about the Uchiha?" Elisa asked, venom in her voice. "Fuck 'em," Rocks rumbled. Naruto nodded. F the boy who was called a prodigy can't do what he hypes up, then he deserves whatever trouble he gets into. Team Mystique chuckled. They moved into the forest, perfectly at ease in search of the Tsuna team and their task of removing them. They found the Tsuna team on approach to the tower. "Look like they got their scroll as quickly as we did," Naruto thought. The red-head, Gaara, as the file they'd gotten, was walking with an umbrella. "Looks like a rain team is dead," Naruto thought and smirked at the thought of the battle between him the one-tailed Jinchuriki would be like. "Do we attack now?" Rocks asked. Naruto looked at the distance and nodded. "Should they cross the tree line we disengage?" Rocks smirked at this and stomped his foot. A wall of rock exploded before the Tsuna team and blocking their path. The blonde, Temari, turned to try to go around and Rocks smirked, bringing up another wall of earth. By this time the red-head, Gaara, was looking back at them. The gourd on his back opened and sand poured out. The boy with makeup and carrying a wrapped puppet, Kankuro, looked around wildly and he could be muttering, "Someone's dumb enough to attack us with Gaara." Naruto smiled as Elisa became mist and summoned up her bat swarm. Naruto released the restrictions and leapt high into the air, chakra tails forming and his features becoming more feral. He landed in a crouch before Gaara. The two stared at one another. Words weren't needed. Elisa arrived before Temari and Kankuro, the siblings looking shocked as the bat swarm moved together and vanished to show a pale girl with her eyes blood red. "Hello children," Elisa hissed, baring her fangs. Rocks arrived riding a mound of dirt and rock. He landed behind Naruto and lifted a hand. "Yo, Gaara of the desert," Naruto said, his voice having a deeper timbre as he looked at the sand user. Gaara nodded. "Good, hate when I kill the wrong person," Naruto said and lunged. All hell broke loose. Elsewhere, Mirage let her morph slip and she sighed. "I hope the kids are having a better time than me," she thought. Who knew killing Kabuto would be so troublesome? She thought, and hearing a sound returned to the form of the silver-haired medic with glasses. Turning, she saw a very battered Orochimaru. "Lord Orochimaru, what happened?" The snake Sannin looked at his second and growled. "The Uchiha brat was easy. Unfortunately I ran into my former apprentice and she wanted to have words." Mirage Kabuto shook her head. "She did this. Should we cancel the plan?" "No need. Enko is dead. She tried a suicide jutsu and blew herself up. I managed to switch out at the last second." Quote. Mirage Kabuto nodded as she went to work on healing the Sannin's wounds. "So you succeeded in marking Sasuke? No one stopped you?" Orochimaru laughed. "Oh," concerned Kabuto. "No, his teammates were too scared and couldn't even move." Orochimaru shifted his healed shoulder. "I wish I didn't have to kill Enko, but it seems I'll need to find someone else to give the old man my message." Mirage Kabuto got a look and smirked. "Why not use the boy's sensei?" Orochimaru chuckled. "Very good, Kabuto. I think I'll have words with Kakashi. Now then, I want you to watch over Sasuke. Make sure he makes it through the forest." Lord Orochimaru, didn't you order our own Odo Nin to eliminate Sasuke?" "Did I? Oh well." Mirage waited until Orochimaru vanished with a shushin before the words, "fuck," slipped from her mouth. Near the tower, Naruto back-flipped away from the sand while Rocks sent stone projectiles at Gaara. His sand formed a shield that blocked it. Across the way, Temari and Kankuro were facing Elisa, and they were finding their attacks useless. Elisa used her bats to distract Kankuro while she stalked Temari. Shame I have to kill her, she has the potential to become very strong. She thought as she vanished as Temari tried desperately to hit her with a wind attack with her fan. Where did she go? Ah, get him off! Get him off! Kankuro screamed as the bats had taken his puppet and dropped it from high above while swarming around him attack. Hello, Ailsa hissed, and Tamar found her arms bound by an unseen force. Don't mind me, I'm peckish. Elisa's fangs elongated and she bit down on Temari's neck. The girl's scream dying in her throat as her blood was drained from her. Back with Naruto, he smacked the sand aside with a chakra tail. You're the container for Shukaku. Quote. Gaara didn't respond as he was getting desperate. The strange blonde was abusing his sand that attacked him and the other one was ripping his sand away from him. Gaara tried a desert coffin on the bigger man and found him laughing and then escaping it only to stomp the ground, and Gaara barely avoided a series of spikes to the stomach. But with that he walked right into the attack from the blonde, and he stared in shock as his hand went to his neck. The tail had sliced across his neck and Gaara dropped to his knees, his eyes wide. Naruto smirked. Nothing personal, I had my orders. Naruto got no further as behind him rocks exploded, literally. He turned and saw a nin wearing the root symbol and his hand was glowing. That was a blast. What the? Naruto took several steps forward. Pain, a voice said, and Naruto went to his knees as his body was being racked by levels of pain he never knew of. The voice was one he knew. Ooji-san, the Hokage, on a branch above, sighed as he watched the boy in pain. I'm sorry Naruto, but the village needs your sacrifice once more. The Hokage did several more seals and uttered the words he never wanted to use. Die. Naruto's brain and heart exploded. Across the field Elisa had been attacked wiry. She found herself ripped away from her meal and pinned to a tree with silver spikes in her shoulders. Annette, her root nin with a garrote made of silver and blessed by the sages, choked her while a third one rammed a stake of pure holly into her heart. As Elisa felt her life leaving her, she looked shocked. The Hokage landed on the ground and looked at the team. Remove the root gear and destroy it, along with the bodies. The group of his personal guards did as ordered. Hiruzen Sarutobi knew Mirage was out there still, but the time-released poison he'd given her would kill her by sunset. My lord, your orders. Tell Orochimaru he is to continue. Hiruzen waited until he was alone in the clearing. The Una Nin had been killed and their bodies left for the carrion. Of Team Mystique there would never be a trace found. It was for the good of the village. The Hokage thought. He'd killed Team Mystique and D was using his former student to destroy the corrupt village. Soon my own death will be added and the end of Konoha will be my funeral pyre. What the council had never learned was that the Hokage was dying. He had another 2 months. 3 max before he died. I'm taking you all with me, he thought. His one regret was that in order to do it he had to kill Naruto. He knew that if the blonde hadn't had the seals on him it would be nearly impossible. He looked at where the vampire had been and sighed. She was pretty, but her devotion to Naruto would have made killing him something more difficult. The spot where Rocks had been murdered was scorched. The nin he'd found in Danzo's organization has the ability to make things explode by forcing his chakra into them. He hated doing what he did, but Team Mystique would have fought tooth and nail, and this attack had been planned out the moment the Hokage learned of Danzo's actions. The Hokage used Naruto's belief in him to kill the container. He led his pipe and walked towards the tower. Soon, Konoha burns and I will dead. I can't wait. The end. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.